Hi folks, Craft here. In today's video, I'll be finishing the teardown of the headstock on my Shopsmith. Try saying that real fast. The first thing I did was remove the speed dial. To do this, I needed to first set the speed to low. I did this last, so please learn from my mistakes. I went ahead and loosened the hex key underneath the dial and then slowly pried it off. Mine was stuck, so I had to really work at it. Next, I needed to remove 3 flathead screws. Here you can see me realizing my mistake and battling that bent speed control. Pushing on the spring-loaded retainer popped the assembly right out. There was a small spring here that had to be removed, as well as another spring flat nut. Usually they just slip off, but this little guy wanted to be stubborn. At the back of the speed control assembly there was a little white plastic piece that I completely forgot about, so I just fished that out as well. I pulled the drive belt out, and while it didn't look too bad, I still ordered a new one. I'll be replacing that later. Next, I pulled the floating sheath and it just slid off. I loosened and later removed the machine screw here to in turn loosen the idler sheath assembly. Then there was a retaining washer and screw that needed to be removed. Now for one of the more satisfying parts of disassembly, whacking it with a soft hammer. For some reason, I decided to remove the eccentric bush while the assembly was still in the housing. This was not necessary. But then, we checked the bearing, and luckily, it's still in good shape. As you'll discover, a couple of retaining screws were covered in a putty of sorts. If you know why, please leave a comment down below explaining this. I have no idea why Shopsmith did this. But I just scratched it out with a utility knife and then removed the screws to release the spindle knob. This should have worked in theory, but it seemed pretty stuck, so I moved on to the Quill assembly. Everything here just screwed or pulled off, until it didn't. I needed to do some research first, so we'll jump to the next day. It turns out you need to remove more putty and another retaining screw. I found this one had a locking compound on, so it needed some persuasion. And finally, the spindle knob came off, revealing a retaining ring that promptly flew off camera. Nope, make that 2 retaining rings and a shim washer. For this, I'm using these cheap pliers, but please don't use them, get yourself something higher quality. And without all the retaining hardware, the Quill assembly could simply be pushed out. It's dirty, but it still looked good to me. A shim washer was holding the drive sleeve assembly in place, so after removing it, I could get back to whacking. I used a scrap piece of dowel to drive the assembly out. Until I decided it would rather be a rocket. Another good looking bearing. But this belt needs to be replaced. Now for removing that machine screw. A washer was hiding from me there, but I'll make sure it goes back home when I reassemble. This is a normal retaining washer, and it's a rated washer with a little tab there. I tried really hard using these pliers, my screwdriver, and basically everything. In the end, I had to scoot it off using my long nose pliers, which really sucked. This is the last plug set screw that I had to dig out. This one ended up rounding out, so I will need to replace that as well. The sleeve simply pulled out. This was an interesting one to take out. I had to mess with it a bit before I spotted how it works. It has a woodruff key on the feed pinion that holds a washer in place and had to be removed. So with my pliers, I pulled it out and the assembly followed. At this point, almost everything was out. But I had to wait for a new punch set to arrive before I could finish up. I needed a roll pin punch to remove the roll pin from the headstock lock. Makes sense. This is a pretty specialized tool, but it makes removing these pins a breeze. Just a few whacks and it's out. All I had left to do was unscrew everything and I was done. The entire headstock has now been broken down. In the next video, I'll be cleaning everything thoroughly and painting it the same blue color I put on the legs. So stick around to see more. I would like to thank everyone for watching. I'll have links to my social media in the description below. And if you want to see any of the crazy things I'll be getting up to, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell. As always, stay kind to yourself, stay kind to others, and be good. Thank you, and bye-bye.